We put up one trial in Austin. We had 6 sites by the end of the year, and now we're in over 100 markets. And our customers love that service. I'm not kidding you, they can't get enough of it. Every time we go out, they want the network on demand service. Network on demand gives them a portal, an ability to dial up, dial down their bandwidth needs. And if you think about it, it's just a start, because you can start to overlay services like bandwidth calendaring on top of the platform network on demand and see all sorts of new network services drive as a result. And so NOD is based on ODL, right? So our network on demand service at its heart, to get it to scale, relied on open daylight and some good work from a lot of our partners to kind of get that to happen. So with that, I think that it's in bounds for this community to give yourselves some applause. Please, clap your hands. All right? I mean, we could not have done it without you. We have looked at multiple internal options. We have looked at multiple external options. ODL was the best fit as a framework. And as that framework, it has worked extraordinarily well for us thus far. And we expect it to actually grow with features and functionality, which will, I think, benefit the entire community. Okay. Before I get into this slide, let me talk to you a little bit about a history. 3 years ago, there was a small team of us, I'm looking at a couple of them back there, at AT&T that sat in little dark rooms, and we were charged with coming up with, gosh, given all the change in the industry, what are we going to do? You know, how are we going to evolve? We looked at every option that we knew in the traditional networking space on how we were going to grow our business, right? And what we came up with something we considered to be very radical. We were going to be completely open. We were going to virtualize everything we possibly can as a VNF. That's just a start, by the way. And we were going to build a network operating system, is what I call it. You know, it's not really right to the semantics, but that's a kind of an easy thing to describe, of how we orchestrate, manage, and operate the network, right? And I'll talk a little bit about that later, but we had these tenets that we were trying to build on, and these architectural principles. Neela showed John's picture on there. A few of us get the distinct privilege of sitting with him every month in a high-tense operations review, asking about why we can't go faster, right? And so that's the level of commitment we have within the company on making sure our vision is a success. Okay, so 2 years ago, after we had sort of put the basic groundwork in place, here's how the conversation went. John, here's what the team recommends for how we evolve into domain 2. We went through some details. He pulls back. He looks at me and he says, do you really think we can pull this off? I said, I worry about what happens if we don't pull it off. So the team was that far into belief that we could change fundamentally the way we do networking, that we were confident. John's response was, let's just get it done, right? And so that's the advantage of having, great leaders like John and others within the company that are innovative, but also are very practical and pragmatic in making sure that we have the cultural, issues addressed as well as the technical issues addressed. So with that, Domain 2 was born, a big step for the company. It may not feel like a big step for people in this room. We actually released the white paper that described our strategy to everyone. We sent it out to over 100 suppliers, vendors, and academics. We put it up on the web and we said, hey, guess what? Things are going to be different. This is where we're headed, right? And at first there was some real disbelief from everyone. I think they were concerned about the level of disruption. And now we've got some big wins under our belt. And I think some of the suppliers and some of our partners are really starting to come along, and it's been awesome. Right? It's been really good. It's the funnest. I've been in telecom for 33 years. It's probably the funnest time that I've worked. Even better than digital switching. Okay, this is a good problem to have, right? This is one of the key drivers. This is our mobility traffic. Wireline has a similar graph, by the way. Guess what the #1 traffic driver is? Just shout it out. Video. Video. In 2014, video doubled. In just 2014, right? The ability for people to consume video dominates our network from a traffic perspective. And if I think about solving this problem with traditional routers and switches and currently how those operate, we just can't continue to buy more and network more. Things get very meshy, it's very complicated. And so we did need to do something radically different. And so I view this slide as the sign of things to come. We see no reason why that graph won't continue for the foreseeable future. All right, which means we've got to be smarter. We've got to network smarter. We've got to better utilize our network. And we have to handle things like, if we're building out our cloud infrastructure to our central offices, start getting content down there because you're not going to push all this over our backbone, right? Okay, so one of the fundamentals is to move away from specialized hardware and into software. I can tell you, over the last year, as we've been doing this, it's easier to say than it is to do. But it has to be done. It is hard, to Neela's point. It is hard. But you know what it is? It's good, hard work, right? And so the overall high-level vision, and I think Margaret and Brian will be going into some more details, is basically replicate for network functions where the cloud industry has been for a decade, right? We want to buy high-volume compute, and we want to get our VNFs, our virtual network functions, ported over on that high-volume commodity off-the-shelf platform in order to decouple the hardware and the software in the very same way that SDN decouples forwarding from control in the pure case, right? And I would say that if I was to give a temperature gauge on this, we're in what we call phase 1. Phase 1 is just take everything we possibly can, turn it into a VNF, and get it onto our AT&T integrated cloud infrastructure. And that's going fairly well. A few bumps here or there, but things like virtual firewalls, virtual load balancers, some of our VoIP, our Gamma, network on demand service, we used to call it Gamma internally, are all functioning in that environment today. Up for the rest of the 2015 is going to be mobility. Mobility is a big deal. There's a lot of moving parts. As a matter of fact, mobility has probably about half of all of our VNFs. Okay? Phase 1, because VNFs are not good enough, and so that's a little bit of a warning shot, is that VNFs today, you chop off the I/O, you recompile them for x86 or whatever, and you still have the same FCAPs, you still have the same operations environment, right? You still have the same reliability and performance characteristics, right? VNFs are not built like cloud applications. So we have to do some special things. In future, another great opportunity for open source, we're going to look to disaggregate, begin to break apart the VNFs, reshuffle the deck, and figure out how we can make the VNFs more cloud friendly. Okay? As we call that phase 2. The buzzword is disaggregation. Okay, so how serious are we about this? This you will see almost plastered, everywhere externally and also within AT&T. We needed a goal. We needed a goal to motivate the company, not just us, people in architecture and development. So our goal is 75% of our network using cloud infrastructure and SDN by 2020. Why not 100%? Well, there's going to be some things that require DSPs and some other special handling. We're not naive, but this will be the things that matter the most, especially from a cycle time perspective. All right, so this was in the white paper, and I just want to kind of hit on a little bit more detail behind this, all right? So first we have Open Our Network. This is 3 years old. right? So, I mean, we are committed to being open, not only from an open source perspective, but also exposing APIs into our network so our competitors, our enterprise customers and residential customers can interface directly into our network. As a matter of fact, we're creating this thing called service design and creation. And think about it as a complete design and application creation environment where people can assemble network functions and layer 4+ functions and first a sandbox and then push them to our network on their behalf, right? So we're definitely in on this all open, and you will see more of this, right? As a matter of fact, at the last ops review, we're reviewing each of our subsystems that we've developed for Domain 2, and I got a question for Master Service Orchestrator, Active Available Inventory, Data Collection, Analytic and Events, Policy, SDN Global, SDN Nodal. Why not just push it all to open source? So that's an action item I took. I don't have the answer to it, but that's how committed the company is to that philosophy. That came directly from Donovan, by the way. We wanted to simplify and scale. This appliance-based world of networking has got to go, right? We just need a platform infrastructure that can run network functions, let the platform team deal with platform, let the applications teams deal with applications, right? So today, you've got mobility. Mobility builds their own networking within their mobility NTCs. You've got the rest of the company building their own networking overlay underlay within their environments. That is going to be completely normalized, right? So we are definitely going to simplify and scale. New operational paradigms. Let me tell you what that means. I use the term intense automation. We want to automate everything we possibly can. And this really helps with cycle times. A service like Network on Demand, months, right? Months to get a service provisioned. Right now, generally 2 to 5 minutes, customer change is affected and done, right? That's what we need to accomplish. We need to accomplish it for ourselves, but more importantly, we need to accomplish it for our customers because our customers are getting a taste of this, and seriously, they really are resonating with these cycle time improvements. And self-service, oh my gosh. If they don't have to call into one of our call centers, right, our NPS goes up. That's our Net Promoter Score. They love just being able to have access and deal with problems on their own. Okay, I already mentioned video on the stressors down here, right? Video is a stressor, but also as IoT takes off, I call it the 10 billion blinking light problem. We'll see a lot of short bursty traffic as well, right? And so there's 2 stressors on either end. We've got the elephant flows and we got the micro flows, right? And that's different than the way the internet handles traffic today. And we want to increase value. I had a funny story on this one. You see, it starts with agile, elastic, dynamic, right? The second in there is cost performance leadership. There was actually a debate on which one of those went first. I mean, you can't make this stuff up. And you see which one won. We're so passionate about improving our cycle times. The quote was, if we don't improve our cycle times, we're dead anyway, right? And so just an interesting observation, little tidbit you pick up along the way. Certainly the cost performance not only comes in from the equipment and the way we're operating the network, but also this automation that we're looking to, which is very critical, so both CapEx and OpEx. World-class industry-leading securance and performance. And these new business models, right? We're already seeing the benefits of the new business models. And I think we're just at the tip of the iceberg. I think the entire industry is on the tip of something wonderful here. So again, kudos to this community. And I know you're one of many open source communities, but you've really done a great job. All right, this is the framework slide, we call it. And what I really wanted to do is just hit a few points on this. One is the bottom orange. If you're a carrier and you're embarking on this, make the bottom, the internal transformation, the people, process, and culture, a priority. You can't just, force this stuff down people's throat. You need their buy-in. That collaboration that that Neela had talked about, it's important to get your teams across operations, your technology development organizations, and your architecture organizations being aligned on purpose and being empowered to make decisions, right? And that's a big change for most telcos who have manual after manual of procedures and blue books or whatever, and have one way of doing things. And this is a big job, right? At AT&T, we rolled out complete training programs for skill pivots, and these are good programs, right? So we've got even partnering with Georgia Tech, a master's in computer science, taken care of by the company, right? Improve your skill sets, right? So really put some emphasis on that if this is new to your companies. The other one I would hit just really quick was the AT&T integrated cloud. We had, at least half a dozen silos in this space, different cloud organizations building their own different clouds. We pulled them all under one umbrella and said one platform, one cloud. Let's get on common OpenStack, we call it platform orchestrator, streams, and drive everyone to the common platform. Okay, I probably don't need to spend a whole time on this one. But first, virtualization. This is like the 3 phases, right? So you've got the virtualization, you've got the control, and then operate. I think we're good, and we're making good progress on the virtualization. Virtually every network function that we have has a path to virtualization, which is good. They're not cloud-friendly VNFs, but they will be. Or, if they're problematic, I'm pretty confident people can start creating open source efforts around, hey, guess what? I'm going to build a virtual network function, put it into open source, put it in your the AT&T App Store, and people can use it if they want, right? And then we've got SDN, which is this is all about, and I'm going to talk in a moment about the different flavors of SDN that are emerging at AT&T, and operate. So operate, to me, is OpEx gold, right? We know we have an improvement here. We can prove it with the cycle times. But this is closed loop, right? So as a VNF fails or something strange happens, it sends out an event to our data collection system. It validates the policy for what to do with that within the policy system. If it needs to elastically expand the VNF, it will do that. If another policy tells it to do something else, it'll do that. And it's completely closed loop and automatic. No hands in the plant. Nothing else going on here. And this is actually part of the release we have operating out in the field, right? Anybody here familiar with Turks? Yeah, we got a couple of old schoolers here. Okay, Turks. We still use Turks for inventory today. We're hoping that our active and available inventory moving forward is going to start to eliminate that from the equation completely. All of the inventory that we have for D2 will be in the ANAI system. It gets automatically commissioned, automatically decommissioned. Its state is always known. All right, so this is a cool part of the story on our distribution, right? So right now, if you see all those little different colored dots, those are different kind of AT&T cloud and or data center infrastructure elements, right? You have to imagine that there is an organization maintaining, operating, designing, and architecting every one of those colored dots. We're in the process of convergence. We announced this year we'll have 69 AIC nodes deployed and running. When I say AIC, that means it's an orange dot. It's converged, okay? And then in the expansion phase, we see hundreds to thousands to millions. And the reason I say millions, it's not all about the central office. It's also things about, if you think about CPE, compute and storage. We could deploy VNFs onto customer prem CPE to handle workloads that are specific to that customer. So I like to say, here, if it's got compute and it's got storage and it connects to the network, let's manage it as an AIC node. Okay, so this slide, it's one Margaret helped me build, sitting back there. So we've got the traditional approach, which is developing, concept with a company. I don't even have to look at the slide. The process goes like this. You have an idea. You've got to work with not one supplier, you have to work with 2 suppliers. It's got to be put into standards. Takes forever. You get your implementations back for your vendors. They go into our lab for anywhere from 6 months to 12 months to 18 months, right? It seems like by the time we get something done, it's like waiting for the sun to burn out or something, right? And so it's just not going to work. It's not going to work anymore. The world doesn't live in that environment, right? So open source, pick a community, right? Take some risks. I like to say that, I was talking at a breakfast table, I made an observation that internally we say yellow is the new green. And what that means is, all of the bean counters and the project managers, get really nervous when they start to see yellow and get really, really nervous when they start to see red. That's been our life for the last year, I would say, right? Is we're always yellow and red. But I've got cover, which is really nice because in this world, we all have to be trailblazers. If you ever get comfortable, then you're probably doing something wrong. Okay. Use your revenue to pick a new idea and bring it to the market. This is actually controversial. We've got like this split brain within the company. We got people wanting us to focus on building the platform and people wanting us to deliver on services. And I'm fortunate because I have a team of people that know how to link service needs to platform needs and not develop them as a service-specific function. It becomes a platform function. If it's not a platform function, guess what happens? The BU pays for it. So the BU is motivated to define their services such that it becomes a platform enabler for other services. So you can use a financial lever to force behaviors, right? And so that's been quite interesting. All right, not to steal any thunder from the speakers coming up, this is really a high-level view, all right? So we've got a service orchestrator. We call it Master Service Orchestrator. It was built in-house, right? And what this does is it takes all of our Yang models and whatnot, and it builds, how we're going to distribute the VNFs out and provisions them. Everything is wonderful. And yes, we still have the cloud orchestrator, which is based on OpenStack, right? That's the platform orchestration is very important. The MSO speaks to the cloud orchestrator to actually do the dirty work. And then we have the SDN global controller, which, as I mentioned, is based on ODL. And we've got SDN local and SDN nodal. And that's two of at least 3 that's on here. SDN local, the industry's defined it as provisioning the overlay, right? Everything's cool with the overlay. And then we've got SDN nodal, which configures the underlay. We have white box fabric switches on here. Another area of innovation, right? It turns out, we've been engaging with a number of merchant silicon vendors. It's not too hard to build these. As a matter of fact, we have experiments within our lab where we've built our own already. So long term, wouldn't it be ideal if we had fabric specified to the degree as we have compute? So every trimester we put out a bid for the next best fabric, and it's plug and play, has a consistent operational surround. All we care about is ins, outs, and price, right? These things are just commodity, just plug them in, right? Okay, and for SD and Nodal, we have this thing going on with ONOS, which is another open source initiative, and we're looking at ONOS to be a type of nodal controller for the spine leaf, right? And it seems to be a good fit for that. We've also taken some steps in access. No one would imagine access. So SDN is generally talked about in like these big data center environments and making inter-data center connectivity, right? We have hundreds of millions of access legs. That's where all the money is, right? Is in metro distribution and access. So for gigapower service, what we actually did is work with a key chip supplier. We disaggregated it. We took the MAC-PHY completely out of the virtualized OLT, put all the control back in the cloud infrastructure, and what that lets you do is scale GPON and NGPON MAC-PHY at a rate and degree that's different than all of the subscriber management and control functionality, right? That's the first time that's been done in Access. Access is like a closed community, right? We've also have G.fast that's in that equation. And it's all part of something called CORD, Central Office, re-architected as a data center. If you want to look it up, that's fine. But ideally, how these controllers work together, there's an application controller I don't show on here, but it very much models what we've done for the directed graphs in the SDN global controller. At least I hope that's the way it stays. And how we rationalize all of these different SDN controllers across the industry that are sort of have a purpose-built function, I think is work to be done, right? So I like this depiction that the team had put together, and I think, it would be worth an effort to try to figure out and really rationalize how we build a platform out of the types of SDN controllers. I really don't want our operations team having to have an entire team focused on SDN Nodal, for instance, right? They should have global network knowledge. They should be able to kind of work seamlessly across these things if possible. Okie dokie. D2 open source technology perspective. Community, quality, agility, de facto standard, right? We still will have some standards, no doubt about it, especially in the regulated space. We have to, right? But the amount of work that I've seen come about through these de facto standards is like an order of magnitude faster. I mean, seriously, at least an order of magnitude. Transparency and rapid innovation. I love this transparency piece in here, right? I think AT&T has been as transparent as any company in the telecom space in the last several years that I've seen. We publish everything. We're speaking very candidly about what we're building, what we're not building, and very candidly about whether or not we want to continue to build it, or would it be better off being in an open ecosystem, right? That's just part of the learning process we're going through. So our customers can't wait for months and years. I already talked about network on demand. We'll enjoy these benefits, gosh, I hope, early next year on mobility. Mobility has got its own unique challenges, right? It's probably the most stateful service that exists on the planet with 3GP interfaces. No offense to 3GP, but you can look at 4 pages of PowerPoint with a call flow and it says call completes here at the bottom, right? And so, I think there's a fundamental architectural change required in mobility. I really do. And maybe it needs to start with simple things like non-mobile Internet of Things devices, right? Deploy self-server portals. I already talked about our service design and creation environment. We have a separate one for network on demand that's specific to that service, and it will be growing, and we'll kind of rationalize the different kind of portals we have over time. And that's it. That's open, fast, simple at scale, and secure, and I thank you for your attention. We put up one trial in Austin. We had 6 sites by the end of the year, and now we're in over 100 markets. And our customers love that service. I'm not kidding you, they can't get enough of it. Every time we go out, they want the network on demand service. Network on demand gives them a portal, an ability to dial up, dial down their bandwidth needs, and virtualize everything we possibly can as a VNF. That's just a start, by the way. And we were going to build a network operating system, is what I call it. It's not really right to the semantics, but that's a kind of an easy thing to describe of how we orchestrate, manage, and operate the network, right? And I'll talk a little bit about that later, but we had these tenets that we were trying to build on and these architectural principles. Neela showed John's picture on there. A few of us get the distinct privilege of sitting with him every month in a high-tense operations review, asking about why we can't go faster, right? And so that's the level of commitment we have within the company on making sure our vision is a success. Okay, so framework, and as that framework, it has worked extraordinarily well for us thus far, and we expect it to actually grow with features and functionality, which will, I think, benefit the entire community. Okay. Before I get into this slide, let me talk to you a little bit about a history. 3 years ago, there was a small team of us, I'm looking at a couple of them back there, at AT&T that sat in little dark rooms, and we were charged with coming up with, gosh, given all the change in the industry, what are we going to do? How are we going to evolve? We looked at every option that we knew in the traditional networking space on how we were going to grow our business, right? And what we came up with something we considered to be very radical. We were going to be completely open. We were going to, if you think about it, it's just a start, because you can start to overlay services like bandwidth calendaring on top of the platform network on demand and see all sorts of new network services drive as a result. And so NOD is based on ODL, right? So our network on demand service at its heart, to get it to scale, relied on open daylight and some good work from a lot of our partners to kind of get that to happen. So with that, I think that it's in bounds for this community to give yourselves some applause. Please, clap your hands. All right? I mean, we could not have done it without you. We have looked at multiple internal options. We have looked at multiple external options. ODL was the best fit as a frame. 2 years ago, after we had sort of put the basic groundwork in place, here's how the conversation went. John, here's what the team recommends for how we evolve into domain 2. We went through some details. He pulls back. He looks at me and he says, do you really think we can pull this off? I said, I worry about what happens if we don't pull it off. So the team was that far into belief that we could change fundamentally the way we do networking that we were confident. John's response was, let's just get it done, right? And so that's the advantage of having great leaders like John and others within the company that are innovative, but also are very practical and pragmatic in making sure that we have the cultural issues addressed as well as the technical.